2 and release IO Bhattacharya Adi Lila 4 171 173. Where is this when I need it? YouTube. So get them. Get 4. Go. This is what gets me. This is what gets me.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's class from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 4, text 171 to 173. And 171 is on the screen now. We are fortunate this morning to have His Grace Balabhadra Prabhu Iskana Lanta to give the class. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble
Hare Krishna,
obeisances.
Prabhu Samabes
Oh,
Gosula Prabhupada.
and it's all yours. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Namo Vishmadaya Krishna Pastai Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanamane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavana Pacharane Nivishesha Shunyavadi. Paschatade Starne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar. Shivasati Go Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Go Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Go Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Om Jnanatimirandasa Jananjanan Salakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruveda Maha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadavmayam Tadate Swapadante Kam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 4, starting with text 71. Ataiva kama preme bhuta antara, kama anda tama prema nirmala bhaskar. Therefore, lust and love are quite different. Lust is like dense darkness, but love is like the bright sun. Text 72. Ataiva gopi ganera nahi kama ganda, Krishna sukha lagi matra, Krishna se sambandha. Thus, there is not the slightest taint of lust in the gopis' love. Their relationship with Krishna is only for the sake of his enjoyment. So the next verse will have some devotees repeat. Yate sujata charanam buruham santeshu, Bita shanai priya dadi mahi karkasheshu, Te natavim atasitat vata te nakim sweet, Kupadibir Brahmatidir Bhavan Ayusamna. Vishnu Gada Prabhu.
Yate sujata charanam buruham staneshu bhitashanay priyadadhimahi karkasheshu tena taving atasitad vyathatena kingsvit kurpadi bi brahmati dhir bhavat ayushamna.
Gita Mataji?
Gita Mataji is not able to
Okay.
get on audio today.
No
She's
problem. Go ahead,
texting me
Prabhu.
about it.
Yeah.
Yate sujata charanam ruham staneshu Pita shane priyadadi mahika kashishu Tena tavim atisitad vatatena kinswet Gurpa dipi pramati dir bapatyusam Kruta dipi pramati Gurpa dipi pramati dir bapatyusam Ayushamna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna. Jai.
Anyone else?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yatte sujat charna buruham staneshu bhitah shanaihi priyadadimahi karkasheshu tenatve matasi tadvyathate kim swet kurpadibhir brahmati dhir bhavad ayusham naha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Word for word. Yat, which, te, your, sujata, very fine, charana, ambu, ruham, lotus feet, staneshu, on the breast, bitaha, being afraid, shanai, gently, priya, O dear one, dadi mahi, we place, kar kasheshu, rough, tena, with them, atavim, the path, atasi, you roam, tat, they, vyatate, are distressed. Na, not, kim swit, we wonder, kurpa adibi, by small stones and so on. Brahmati, flutters, di, the mind. Bhavat ayusham, of those of whom your lordship is the very life. Na, of us. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O dearly beloved, your lotus feet are so soft that we place them gently on our breast, fearing that your feet will be hurt. Our life rests only in you. Our minds, therefore, are filled with anxiety that your tender feet might be wounded by pebbles as you roam about on the forest path. This text from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:31-19 was spoken by the gopis when Krishna left them in the midst of the Rasa Lila. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Okay.
So I was just discussing the other day with Vishnu Gada Prabhu, and we were talking about this particular part that we're reading here in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and how it deals with very intimate subject matters relating to Krishna and his dearmost gopis. And for the most part, we're not qualified to comment. This was our conclusion, that we don't have the qualification to actually comment on this. And we see from many verses, Srila Prabhupada doesn't give extensive purports. We just have the blessing of being able to hear these wonderful narrations and emotions and feelings of the gopis toward Krishna. So then we have to try to understand, how do we apply this, even though it's, as they say in the mundane world, above our pay grade. It really is. I can pull many references, and which I will share a few today, and try to hear some different perspectives from Srila Prabhupada, different acharyas, and then try to present it here. But I can't say that I have deep realization of this. First and foremost, for all of us, we have to understand the position of Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then try to place that understanding or filter whatever we have to say through that understanding that Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then we have to go even further and say, well, what does it mean, Supreme Personality of Godhead? The gopis themselves are not looking at Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The residents of Vrindavan, for the most part, did not see Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even Arjuna, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, did not see Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only after Krishna explains so many things to Arjuna, and then in the 11th chapter, he shows the universal form, and then Arjuna begins to change his way of dealing with Krishna, change his attitude. Rupa Goswami explains that the attitude, devotional service, progress depends on the attitude of the practitioner. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita 10:10, Bhajitam Priti Purvakam. That's all about attitude, loving devotional service. So in order to understand Krishna, his relationship with the gopis, we have to understand who is Krishna. Like Srila Prabhupada explains very carefully, you don't jump to the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. You go through all the other 9 cantos, and Krishna is presented. You can have a basic understanding of Krishna being Supreme Personality of Godhead and what that means. It begins in the 1st canto, very first verse, which I can't remember all the Sanskrit, but it describes the position of the Supreme Lord. That from which everything has emanated is the Supreme Lord. Everything. We have to just stop sometimes and just think. Everything emanates from that person. The other day, someone told me that an attendant in a class asked the question, maybe it was a younger person, who made Krishna? Who created Krishna? And sometimes we answer by saying, whoever made Krishna is Krishna. Whoever made God is God. The original source of everything. Very simple definition. Then you have to just stop and think about just a simple part of the creation that we can see right now. We don't see much of it. We look in the sky, we only see a small portion of it. And then we can think about this planet, think about the universe, think about the distance between planets, think this is just one universe, millions, trillions of universes. And then we come back and say, oh, that Krishna? Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. He's the original personality of Godhead. And everything emanates from him. And that is who the gopis are talking about in such an intimate way. So we should not fool ourselves that we can speak about Krishna in any casual way, knowing who he is, knowing his position as Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, I stated over and over again, understanding to some degree the extensive power and position of the Supreme Lord. Then you try to understand Krishna. Because if we see Krishna, as I said, in a casual way, we can speak about him in a sort of casual way, as if we know him personally, that we're dealing with him personally. In fact, we are dealing with him personally. He's in everyone's heart. He's manifested himself as a deity. He's manifesting himself in the pure devotees as well. We are dealing with Krishna on a regular basis. But for me, I know for a fact, I forget that on a regular basis. And then I get confused. But when I just stop and meditate on it, after reading Bhagavad Gita, which I try to do on a regular basis, and being reminded of Krishna's position, then my attitude changes. When my attitude changes, my day changes. My happiness changes. Everything changes when I start remembering consistently who Krishna is. I remember His Holiness Jayapataka was telling devotees that the moment you forget Krishna, you're in Maya. Very simple statement, but it's very impactful. So that means Manmanad Bhava Mad Bhakto, engaging our minds always in the Lord. And he says, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, always, constantly constantly, not just 16 rounds or 64 rounds or any number of rounds, constantly thinking of him. Chanting Hare Krishna helps us remember Krishna. Reading Srila Prabhupada's books regularly, attentively, scrutinizingly helps us to remember Krishna. Because, for me at least, if we don't remember Krishna, we tend to make many, many mistakes in our dealings with each other, in our dealings with the deities. I made a note on that point about the deities, that the gopis are expressing this amazing mood, like this verse that we just read. Our dearly beloved, your lotus feet are so soft that we place them gently on our breast, fearing that your feet will be hurt. So then when we're dealing with the deities, we're dealing with their lotus feet, we're dealing with their lotus bodies, their lotus face, we're dealing with the Lord. I remember one statement from Srila Prabhupada that, be careful, like in dealing with the deities for pujaris, be careful, you're dealing with God. But again, you have to understand God, what that means, the expansive nature of what that means. And then you bring that back into your puja and devotional worship. And then you become very careful. The other day they had Snana Yatra here in Philadelphia. Of course, I'm in Philadelphia right now, so they had a wonderful Snana Yatra, very beautiful. But the whole time when they were moving the deities, I am in total anxiety. Because I had just saw a video 2 or 3 days ago where in Jagannath Puri, where things are on such a high standard of worshiping the deities, Balaram fell over on 7 and injured 17 or more people. I'm not saying they were not careful, but those things can happen. Years ago, when I was temple president in Atlanta, for one of the first Rath Yatras we did without the cart, we only had the palanquins. And I was concerned that Balaram was not secure, and we had these beautiful ribbons around his neck. So I just opened it just a little bit to make sure, and then Balaram fell on his face. I was completely heartbroken. I didn't know what to do. Thanks to my dear friend and GBC member, Jai Bhattacharya, she just said, okay, you made a mistake, now just move forward. So when they were moving the deities on Sunday here, I was in anxiety until the deities were back on the altar, not just when they were put into the bathing situation, but until they were put back on the altar and secure. I'm not saying I'm Krishna conscious. It's just that in my training as a pujari, you have to focus on the deity. And another point I wanted to mention in that regard, sometimes, okay, if you're in the presence of some great person, doesn't matter who it is, whoever it is, whoever's great to us in our estimation. For instance, this very rich family in India, son just got married, beautiful wife, all these things. And everybody wants a selfie. Everybody wants to be in a picture with these people. And I can promise you, guarantee you that in the presence of such important people, you tend to be a little quiet. You don't just start talking and blasting out, you just respect. So it's surprising to me that on the altar in the presence of Krishna in his deity form, devotees have conversations going on. I was trained in the beginning, you don't talk on the altar. If you need to say something, come off. And I hear it sometimes behind the curtains, devotees are talking and sometimes shouting. And I'm thinking, not to be offensive, but are you realizing who you're in front of? Because if you were in front of the President of the United States, you wouldn't do it. If you were in front of Narendra Modi, you wouldn't do it. Your famous rock stars, you wouldn't do it. Why do we do it in front of Krishna? Because we're not remembering who he is. The gopis are remembering. They're on a very high platform. As I said from the beginning, trying to understand the mood of the gopis is beyond us. Thanks to Vishnu Prabhu, as we had that conversation, put me in the right mood. That this is something way above, but we can see it from certain perspectives that can help us in our devotional life. That's why before we go on the altar, we do many prayers to prepare our minds for what we're getting ready to do, who we're getting ready to be in front of. Nityananda, Chaitanya, those people, who they are, their position, who Nityananda is. And a part of him is the Mahavishnu. Oh my God, think about that. Who is this Mahavishnu? All universes are coming from the skin holes of his body. and as a part of Nityananda, and I'm getting ready to bathe him, touch him, move him. If we stop and think, when we do our devotional service, then gradually this Bhajitam Priti Purvakam will start to manifest, because we start to begin to understand who, to some degree, who Krishna is. It's like Arjuna, as I said, didn't realize who Krishna was in the beginning. He saw him as cousin, brother-in-law, chariot driver, so many things. Saini Yoga Yormadeh, Ratam Stapai made to drive my chariot. Krishna very nicely drove his chariot in the midst of the two armies. How could you say that to God? How could you say, to the deity, my dear deity, come off the altar and do some service for me? No way. So later on, when Arjuna realized who Krishna was, he apologized. We sat on the bed together. We joked together. We ate together. I didn't realize who you were. Then he actually said, why won't they bow to you, serve you, my dear Lord? Why do people hesitate to do like that? Because they don't understand. So as devotees, how do we practically apply this very intimate mood of the gopis? Well, we modify to our own ability. In the service that we have, the service that we've been given is such an incredible blessing, especially if you get a chance to serve the deities. Of course, all service is important, but when you're taking care of Radharani and Krishna and Gauranitai and Jagannath, and it's such an amazing opportunity to practice thinking of Krishna. So we should not waste those opportunities. That way you can go back and look at these 3 verses and put that into your mind, the lotus feet of Krishna. If you get a chance to touch them on the altar, think of how the gopis thought about that. I had a wonderful example, not of the gopis and Krishna, but of Srila Prabhupada, and thinking about his lotus feet. Somewhat in this mood to some degree, especially here when it's talking about fearing that your feet will be hurt by the pebbles and so many things on the road. So when Srila Prabhupada came to Atlanta in 1975, the night before he arrived, myself and one devotee, we noticed that we had a wooden temple room floor, not marble, wooden. And we noticed that the tiny little nails that held the wood down were coming up because we had these very, very enthusiastic kirtans jumping, so all the nails were coming up. So we said, wait a minute, Prabhupada's going to be walking on this floor tomorrow. We can't allow this. So the whole night we stayed up, knocking down each little nail, making sure through the entire room, because Prabhupada could probably walk anywhere. I didn't think about the gopis at that point, but later on I'm realizing that was a blessing by Krishna to give us the insight to have that mood, to be concerned about Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet being pricked. And then when I hear this mood of the gopis, I feel not vindicated, I just feel I was blessed to be able to think like that. Now let me see if I can feel that way more and more about Krishna, because the spiritual master is giving us a chance by being able to serve such advanced devotees, getting us prepared to serve Krishna. He's the external representation of the super soul. So we get a chance to serve the spiritual master and also serving the devotees as well. By such service to pure advanced devotees, great service is done, and one gets the affinity for hearing the messages of the Bhagavatam. So the mood of the gopis, as described here in this verse, and Srila Prabhupada says, is from the 10th canto, 31st chapter, text 19. So I was just looking at that chapter, and there's some beautiful verses. I won't read them all, just a few to give us a little taste. Starting with text 1, the gopis said, O beloved, your birth in the land of Braj has made it exceedingly glorious. And thus Indira, the goddess of fortune, always resides here. It is only for your sake that we, your devoted servants, maintain our lives. We have been searching everywhere for you, so please show yourself to us. This is called the Gopis' Songs of Separation. Let's do a couple more verses. O Lord of love, listen to that phrase. In fact, I'm going to write a song about this. What do you think, Parikshit? This is a great title for a song.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Isn't it? O Lord of love. That's very modern, pop sounding. O Lord of love, in beauty your glance excels the world of the finest, most perfectly formed lotus within the autumn pond. O bestower of benedictions, you are killing the maidservants who have given themselves to you freely without any price. Isn't this murder? Text 3. O greatest of personalities, you have repeatedly saved us from all kinds of dangers, from poisoned water, from the terrible man-eater Aga, from the great rains, from the wind demon, from the fiery thunderbolt of Indra, from the bull demon, and from the son of Mayadanda. Just one more. You are not actually the son of the Gopi Yashoda, O friend, but rather the indwelling witness in the hearts of all embodied souls. Because Lord Brahma prayed for you to come and protect the universe, you have now appeared in the Satvata dynasty. And also, again, to help us get into this mood of appreciating the gopis, I pulled a few references. And unfortunately, I'm not at home, so I don't have all my books, but I just had to go to the folio database. From the line of the Bhagavad, it says, in love of Godhead, they could hardly realize the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. Therefore, we must first activate our dormant love of Godhead by following the prescribed rules and by following in the footsteps of the authorities who are actually fixed in love of Godhead. So I'll stop there for a second, because who is our authority? Srila Prabhupada. Unquestionable, undoubtedly. He's our authority. And I say again, I say this with all confidence. None of us, including ISKCON gurus, ISKCON GBCs, presidents, all of us, Bhakti Shastri, whatever you might be, none of us would be anything in terms of this culture without Prabhupada. Absolutely not. No one would know me, or maybe they knew Pariksha because he was famous in Africa as a musician, but they wouldn't know us. Now people know us because of what? We speak the philosophy of Srila Prabhupada. Don't try to own it. It's not ours. We should first of all speak it according to what we feel Prabhupada would be pleased. As we're speaking Krishna conscious philosophy, in our hearts we hope that Prabhupada would be pleased, just like book distributors. I remember Sikhi Mahita was saying recently that, the goal of the book distributor in the 70s was to make somehow Prabhupada would see our book score. We can just please Prabhupada somehow or another. So it's like every thought, Prabhupada has given us this platform. Remember, he's given us this platform. Now we're being respected as senior devotees, Prabhupada disciples, degree holders, position holders, all the way up to guru. And those who forget that have problems. It's been proven over and over. Whether you're a small devotee or so-called big devotee, we forget that we're riding on the coattails of Srila Prabhupada. He's given us the platform to speak with any level of authority. Okay, whatever comes out of our mouth should be prefaced by what we have read from Srila Prabhupada. Absolutely. Again, I'm speaking from my platform, so there may be different opinions about that. And that's normal in the circle of devotees. We all have different ideas and different realizations, because realization is based on or contingent upon the level of our devotional service. Bhajitam priti purvakam, dadami buddhi yogam tam. It's all depending on Krishna. He's in everyone's heart. From him come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. But if we remember his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada, in the course of our activities, especially in the course of our preaching, never thinking that I know these things. We don't know anything. We're not even doing anything. That's confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Bewildered soul thinks himself to be the doer. We're also bewildered souls. Don't think that the Bhagavad Gita is for someone else to read it. We sell it, we give it out, whatever, make a gift of it. It's for them to read and follow. And then we explain it to them. You should do like this and that. No, it's talking to us. 12th chapter, verses 13 to 20. Krishna saying, who is dear to me? You make a little folder of those verses and then try to follow what's being said. And the first thing said is, he who is a kind friend to all living beings. First thing said, he who is a kind friend to all living beings, for whom no one is put into difficulty, who is not disturbed by the ordinary course of activities. That's the criteria. And we try to follow that. It's not easy. After many years in the movement, those of us who've been around 50 plus years, like Vishnuguru, myself, it's not easy. It's difficult. But if we practice, which is also what Krishna told Arjuna, it's possible by practice and detachment. It's possible that we can come to a level where we can appreciate the mood of the gopis and follow in the footsteps of the authorities. For us, again, Srila Prabhupada, who are actually fixed in love of God, not just the authorities. We should respect all authorities. Like in our ISKCON movement, the GBC is defined by Srila Prabhupada as the ultimate managing authority. Doesn't mean that they know everything, but in terms of managing this institution, they are the ultimate managing authority. So when we enter into any ISKCON situation, we have to respect that authority, period. But the person actually fixed in love of Godhead, not to say that certain devotees are not fixed in love of Godhead. I'm not going to be so presumptuous to say that. But here, it's saying who are actually fixed in love of Godhead. Now we know from the life of Srila Prabhupada, he was fixed in love of Godhead. And all of those devotees, from the top to the so-called smaller devotees, who were trying to follow in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada, Mahajano Yenagata Sapantaha, the Mahajana great soul of Srila Prabhupada, then we make progress in spiritual life. Then it says, the gopis provide the highest example of such unalloyed love of Godhead. And Lord Chaitanya, at the ultimate stage of realization, displayed the viraha worship of the mood of the gopis. Wow. So there's a lot there. But again, well, one of the words that's very impactful to me is unalloyed, like an alloy. If you find some metal or something that has different alloys, it may not be 100% pure. So here is unalloyed love of Godhead. You know, there's nothing mixed in there. There's no karma, no gyan, no yoga, no ambition for sense gratification, just purely for pleasing Krishna. The gopis are the best example, which is said here. The highest example of such unalloyed love of Godhead is the gopis. Cannot be matched in any way. The gopis, their only concern is for Krishna's enjoyment. There's a lecture, and I can't remember the exact one. I have to go back and find it. At the end of the lecture, Srila Prabhupada said, and with tears, you could hear the emotion in his speech. He said, Radharani doesn't ask Krishna for anything. That one meditation will cause you to sort of stop and slow down and think about your spiritual life. Radharani, and Prabhupada said it, doesn't ask Krishna for anything. Sometimes devotees ask me, should I pray for a better job? Should I pray for the health of my family? Sure, whatever. Kama sarva kama va moksha kamu dadadi to bring the bhakti yogena, yajeta putta something. If you have all desires, you have no desires. Then, of course, pray to Krishna. But the highest level, nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitam bha jagadishikamed. I don't want anything. Especially I don't want any number of followers, which is another thought that came in my mind this morning. We don't want followers. If we strive to have followers, we're not understanding this philosophy. We're forgetting Lord Chaitanya's statement. Najanam, najanam. I don't want any followers. But automatically there will be followers. If you speak this philosophy and you try to guide others, automatically there will be some so-called followers. But if you remember Lord Chaitanya's meditation, then you won't become attached to the so-called followers. Then you realize that my job now that someone is depending on me, someone respects me, someone appreciates me, offering me gifts, saying nice things about me, what is my responsibility now? To share whatever Krishna consciousness I know, especially what I know in fact, because some things I know intellectually, but I don't have necessarily the experience. But some things I know by practical application. Jnana, Vijnana. Some things I know. I know that if I follow Srila Prabhupada, this morning in the lecture, in Srila Prabhupada's lecture, he was talking about the Arya Samaj and how they have a certain kind of practice. And he was speaking that in India, people wake up early and take baths. And he said, waking up early means before 4 o'clock. before 4 o'clock. So he was saying that doing like that and following this system, one will make advancement in Krishna consciousness. So being very focused on a simple lifestyle and not thinking that we want some respect, we want some honor, but just following. So he said, we will make progress if we rise early and hear the glories of the Lord, chant Hare Krishna. Then these anarthas, like this wanting respect, wanting to be appreciated, they will not affect us so much. Because I said, as you become Krishna conscious, people will respect you, they will come to you, they will, ask you for so many things, so many nice things. Then our duty is simply to receive that on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual masters, and then just try to do service. So we should not desire things, like desiring a position in this movement is very dangerous. We can assume service in this movement, temple leadership, temple president, so many different things, GBC, regional secretaries, all those things. Or someone may become a guru. That's no problem. But we should not be desiring position other than for the purpose of serving Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada took a position of traveling to America and starting this movement. He desired to do that based on what his spiritual master wanted, but he never lost focus on the purpose of why he came. So again, to me, it's about the attitude of the gopis, which is being described here, and how we can practically incorporate some of this into our own thinking, realizing that we can't imitate the gopis. When devotees in ISKCON in the past, in the 70s, started trying to get into the mood of the gopis, they started some group in California, I forget the exact name, but they were just absorbed in the gopis, just always focusing on the gopis, because that's the highest. And generally, we Westerners, we kind of think, well, I want the best. What is the best? Okay, the highest is the gopis. Let's try to become like the gopis. And it was a mistake. That's not what Prabhupada, he wanted us to systematically go through this process and develop systematically so that our Krishna consciousness would sustain for many decades, for our whole life. If we get to live some years, we have to be Krishna conscious our whole life, not for just one burst of energy. I'm fired up for one burst, like one burst. This is a long road. And it might be Bahunam Janmanan Ante. It might be many lifetimes. Are we prepared to accept that? If you hear from the great acharyas, yes, Mama Janmani Ishvare. Birth after birth. Heaven or hell. That's not my mood exactly right now, but I know what the standard is. Like they say, standard bearer or benchmarking. Benchmarking means you find a company that's successful and you just follow their example. Don't try to recreate the wheel. So we have the same principle here. Mahajano Yena Gatasapanta, follow in the footsteps. Who do we know that's so close to us that we can follow his footsteps by seeing him, hearing him, reading his books? Srila Prabhupada. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I never saw. Bhaktisiddhanta, I never saw. Gorkishore, I never saw. Even Lord Chaitanya, I've not seen in his transcendental moving form. Krishna, I have not seen. But Prabhupada, I've seen. Prabhupada, I've done little service in his presence. So trying to follow him, what did he do? He was very humble, very sincere, absorbed in Krishna, always talking about Krishna, helping others to understand Krishna. So we can follow that. And then as we do that, and we hear these pastimes of the gopis, then we can, in some small way, begin to incorporate their mood into our lives. So let me give a couple more verses, then we can open it up for discussion. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita 7:39. The unalloyed love of the gopis and Srimati Radharani is without any trace of material lust. The criterion of such transcendental love is that its only purpose is to satisfy Krishna. Prabhupada said recently, why do we go to the temple? To satisfy Krishna. Please Krishna. But when we go for other purposes, that's when we have conflict. That's when we have problems amongst the devotees. because we're coming for different purposes. Like say in a football game, the purpose is to get that football over the line. So the whole team, I forget the number, 11, 12, whatever it is, their whole goal is to get that football over the line. It's amazing, isn't it? All these men piling up on each other to get that one ball over the line. So when we come to the temple, what is the purpose? Some people think it's to socialize. That's going to happen naturally because you'll be around devotees. Satsanga, that's nice. But what is the real purpose of coming to the temple, especially on Sunday feast? It's not for chit chat. I say this from my perspective. I'm sure there are other perspectives. But for the lecture, it's not for entertainment. That's my perspective. I'm not saying everyone has to think that way. So whoever's speaking should not speak to entertain, my perspective again. That's not the purpose. Purpose is to share your level of understanding of Krishna consciousness with others, especially those new people who don't hardly know anything. Sometimes I notice in the Sunday lecture, the regular devotees pile up in the front and the newer people sort of in the back. They kind of almost like left out of the conversation. Then we speak to the, as they say, to the choir, those who know the Sanskrit words and the Sanskrit verses and da-da-da-da-da. But those people who came, Adal Shraddha, had little faith enough to come to our temple, they're sort of here. We have to think about that. Our duty when we speak is to try to share whatever level of realization we have with all of those who we come in contact with. So I'll basically stop with that because I just think that we have to really slow down a little bit, back up a little bit, try to appreciate the mood of the gopis, try to apply some of these principles in our lives so that we can make systematic advancement in Krishna consciousness. And by the grace of the Lord, our attachment will grow for him naturally. It's not a question of how many years. Prabhupada said in a second we can attain Krishna consciousness, 1 second. But it requires attentive practice. So when we look at the life of the gopis, we see what it means, unalloyed, attentive practice. And that simple thing is, wherever we go, like when we go to the temple, it's for Krishna. When we give a lecture, it's to please Krishna and the spiritual master. But again, that very simple thing, when we go to the temple, go there to please Krishna. Focus is on the deities and the chanting of the holy names. Like even in Kirtan. Kirtan is very interesting. Vishnu Gadapa and myself having a lot of conversations about Kirtan. But sometimes in the Kirtan, devotees, again, my estimation, lose focus on what we're doing. And we have a good time. We're chanting, we're jumping up, we're dancing. The Madanga players are going transcendentally berserk, just going like that. And sometimes don't even look at the deities. So I like when we move up toward the deities and move back this way sometimes toward Prabhupada and just bring everyone's focus back to why we're doing this kirtan. Kirtan is for Lord Chaitanya, Krishna's pleasure, not for our pleasure. We will feel pleasure in kirtan if Krishna's happy. Absolutely. So I'll leave you with that thought that the gopis' mood, their only concern is for Krishna's enjoyment. That's the simplest way to put it. So we are not there yet, but we should know what the standard is, see the example of Srila Prabhupada and also his sincere followers, that Krishna first, and then we'll make progress and we'll be safe. So I will stop there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So if anyone has any questions or comments.
Thank you, Prabhu, very much for this very wonderful lecture, which is to wake us up again.
Wake up.
Krishna consciousness, what it's about and what we're doing, because Maya can make us flat sometimes, lethargic in the services because we've done it over and over and over again. Therefore, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing, that kind of thing. And the next thing we know, we're really not getting to the heart connection that needs to be there. So you really have said it in a way that is helpful. I know for myself, my own purification, hopefully for others too, depending on where they're at and how they think about service. So devotees, please, this is the time to unmute yourself. You have a comment, you have some realization. And we have senior devotees on here, which is wonderful. Vishnu Gaddafi, especially. Personally, I can't wait to hear from him also his comment. So if you can start, that would be wonderful. But it's up to you.
Haribol.
Haribo.
So you know that Balabhadra Prabhu, that we had some discussion about whether we should actually even do classes on this part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah.
And I think it was concluded, your recommendation was, well, yeah, we should do it, but this is the books are given. This book is given by Srila Prabhupada, and that we should be appreciative of it, and we should review it, but not focus too much on it, or something like that. We were talking.
Yeah.
Then after that, I was wondering, did Srila Prabhupada ever give class on this part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita?
Mm.
I looked in the database, and guess what I found?
Ah,
What do you think?
some classes.
No, he never did.
He never did. Okay.
Never give class. At least, he never gave class on this this chapter. He gave class on the first 16 verses of the Adi Lila, which is, the invocation, and
Yeah.
then he gave one class on the third chapter of Adi Lila, which is the external reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearance.
Mm.
Then he gave a number of classes on the seventh chapter of Adi Lila, being the Lord Chaitanya and 5 features, which includes his preaching to the Mayavadi sannyasis in Benares, and
Mm.
the many classes on the Madhya Lila, actually. But he never gave class, at least it's not recorded, on this chapter that we're doing now. And I don't know exactly what to make of it.
Yeah.
One could make an argument, well, that maybe since Srila Prabhupada didn't give classes on this, maybe it's not a good idea for us to do that. But of course, even in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's so many verses that Srila Prabhupada didn't give. The other side of it would be, there's so many verses in Srimad Bhagavatam Srila Prabhupada didn't give classes on, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't give class. But you could go either way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any additional thoughts. On one hand, sometimes people ask, well, maybe we shouldn't read the Chaitanya Charitamrita at all because that's for the people who are advanced. And actually, one Mataji asked me a couple days ago, is it okay for me to read Chaitanya Charitamrita? So, she was relatively new. So I said, well, what is the standard for reading Chaitanya Charitamrita? One should be a little advanced, right? It's the graduate study. So what was
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada's criteria? What was his criteria for being advanced? So my understanding is that he said, you understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you're advanced, then you can read it. Anyway, so a couple of things. Yeah, and you're certainly welcome to comment. Please do. And then you were talking about the speaking on the altar, or even in the temple room, unnecessarily. In front of when the deity curtains are open, and so
Yeah.
one aspect of that is that because we may do that maybe casually because we don't really understand who is, as you're saying, who the person on the altar is. And in other words, Srila Prabhupada put it very strongly. He would say sometimes that we're thinking it's idol worship.
Yeah. Wow.
We got to, yeah. Like when there was a dance troupe that came to perform in the Mayapur temple, and they were dancing with their backs to the deities. And Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, this is idol worship. Then we're doing idol worship. They're dancing with their backs to the deities." Anyway, so that, some
No.
ideas.
Beautiful, beautiful thoughts, Ruth. Thank you so much. And you reminded me of especially about the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the idea of reading, not reading. So this one devotee in Atlanta, book distributor, he was asking Srila Prabhupada about that first volume of Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is so big, it's bigger than the other ones, more or less. So he said, Prabhupada, we're distributing this book, and then, people don't understand it, and da-da-da-da-da. And from the story that I heard, Prabhupada said that it is like a sweet ball. Anywhere you bite it, it is sweet. So anywhere you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is sweet. It's sweet nectar. Prabhupada said when he was on the boat, Shaladuta, having all these physical problems, I'm getting solace by hearing Chaitanya Charitamrita. So when we give the books, here's another thing, book distributors out there. When we give the books, we have to explain to people to a certain degree what they're getting. Now it's become very popular to sell whole sets of books. Here it is, this donation. It's a great book, boom. But obviously, they're not going to understand all of this information. So it's incumbent upon us to try to start building relationships, not just numbers. I come from the background in book distribution where the numbers were the main thing. We called it the quota system. You had to do X number of books, X amount of money, or you don't come home, kind of thing. It had really happened like that. But we have to get a little bit past that. And I think some devotees in book distribution now are trying to do this kind of follow-up and keeping up with people, which is fantastic. And help them go through this information. Have a little card and say, if you have any question, call me, write to me. I remember when I first started reading Prabhupada's books and I was working not far from the temple, and I got my Bhagavad Gita, I called the temple 5-10 times a day. I'm struggling trying to figure out what is this? I really want to understand this. And I know I probably agitated the devotees because I was calling constantly. I wanted to know, if I'm going to give my life to this, I need to know what I'm giving my life to. So we're giving them the Chaitanya Charitamrita, as Vishnu Gada is pointing out so eloquently. This is postgraduate study information, and we're just dropping it in people's hands. Wow. So we have to think, what can I do to help them understand this incredible literature? So that's just one thought that came to mind from what you said, Vishnu Gada Prabhu. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna. We
Hare
step on the
Krishna.
basis of God is so powerful. Again, the more both of you are speaking, I know I'll just share my own experience first time I heard Chaitanya Charitamrita. That showed me how much of a newbie I was. Giranagri, your godbrother Muktavanya used to read Chaitanya Charitamrita on Saturdays when it was his turn to preach. Because we're living on the Dharma at that time, so we would go for classes regularly. And the first time it struck me like, okay, so then he reads and activities with Lord Chaitanya and his close associates, and then they finished, and then they went home. I was like, okay, they went home, and then the next day something else happened. And I'm like, okay, so this is spiritual, but I don't see it yet. It's almost like what they're doing. But later on, it took a while for me, then I'm saying this to say, without Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, it's almost like a spiritualist going to work and coming home, doing the spiritual thing and coming home. That's the way it's going to come across to you. Unless the deep, deep, deep expressions and the understanding from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam have been cemented well in the mind. Now, there is a spiritual connection to this. There's a spiritual connection to Bhagavatam. This is how it comes out. So I don't know really about a person that's right in the street getting to meet that soon. I don't know. I would feel uncomfortable giving that kind of book to a person. Honestly, I don't know whether the Buddhists that are distributing books are doing that. Chaitanya Charitamrita is, it's at its own level. That's higher, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, help me here. Should that be given out? in book distribution? I don't know.
All of Prabhupada's books can be distributed. From being a full-time book distributor for many, many years in the past, and I still do some book distribution, I think it's important to establish a small relationship with the people you talk to and try to tell them what you're giving them. Like you say, I mean, this is very complicated information, and you have to explain to them that, this is not going to be understood from your first reading, and I would highly recommend that you get in touch either with myself and you show them the centers in the back of the book. You can reach out there, because in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, here's the primer, or here's the instruction from Srila Prabhupada in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, first verse of the first chapter, first purport. He said in the Gita, Bhagavad Gita is described in the Gita Mahatmya, wherein it says, one should study Bhagavad Gita with the help of a devotee of Krishna without any personally motivated interpretation. So what does that mean? People should read Prabhupada's books with the help of devotees. We have to figure out universally as an institution, because we have temples all over the world, and we give books to people who may live in our home area, but they may not. So we have to let them know. I mean, I remember going to the back or front of the book, showing people the addresses. Where are you from? Chicago. There's a place in Chicago. At that time, it was on Woodlawn Street, or wherever it was, I can't remember. Emerson, something, not the temple now. And I showed them the address. New York, show the address, 55th West Avenue, whatever. Boom, 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 boom. Because I was concerned, knowing that they're going to take this book, they're really not going to understand it, and let them know there's a way, because I'm going from my own experience. I was just in the movement I joined in 73, and I came from, working close to the temple, being around devotees, I'm calling all the time, getting questions answered. So I'm taking my experience, helping them. This is what I did. And I tell people, I used to call the temple 20 times a day. Really, you can do that? Yeah, because that's what we're here for. But the problem is, nowadays, if they call the temple, there's no one there. Yeah. No secretary, no one answers the phone. Quote unquote, in the old days, someone was assigned to answer that phone. Mm-hmm. Okay? There was an office. You could go there, get your questions answered. I showed up at the temple. Luckily, there were devotees there to greet me, take care of me. So to your point, Prabhu, it's like, this is very high level knowledge, highest knowledge, and we just drop it like a bomb. Of course, that's also acceptable, because Prabhupada said even if they touch the book, they get so much benefit. Even if they don't read it, if they just have it. So devotees work on that principle as well. But Prabhupada's he's not telling us don't try to help them. He's just saying if they get the book, they're fortunate. And devotees think, well, if I give them the book and I convince them to give some money, they're going to value the book. Maybe they might value it. But if you let them know that there's a way that they can get education, and you give them a little introduction to what they might be able to get from the book. Mostly devotees say yoga, meditation. Now we say veganism, all these little catchwords, But is there something a little deeper that we can say to people? Like one devotee in Atlanta, she would always say, are you looking for more happiness in life? And the person would say, yes. I remember one day she was talking to a police officer downtown, in a very rough part of downtown Atlanta. And she said that to him. And the guy said, yeah, I'm looking for more happiness. And then she started preaching about Bhagavad Gita, verses that she knew. And the guy took a book, policeman gave like $20, very happy, So all I'm saying, take a little time. If you're giving Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's not that you can't give it, but knowing what it is, try to help people a little bit. Practically, give them some contact with yourself. They met you on Sankirtan. They didn't meet Bhakta Harold from the temple. They met you. So just give them some contact and be prepared to guide them. I'm not saying devotees should not do big numbers of books. But all I'm saying is that if we have an opportunity to take a little moment with a person, it really helps.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Take your advice. I still have to figure out what to tell about Chaitanya Charitamrita, but it does help, yeah. This is Lord Chaitanya himself. And
what do you like about it?
Maybe the connecting us to love of God.
Yeah.
In a practical way. That's what's coming to mind.
So what do you personally love about Chaitanya Charitamrita? Because they say, like in selling technically is described as a transference of conviction.
Mm.
So if you're trying to sell something that you don't really like, it's hard. So Prabhupada always said, you read the books, then you can sell nicely. Then you share with people what what motivates you from the book. So we have to just stop and think. You don't have to answer now. Everyone here can stop and think, what motivates me from the book? So whatever that is, you talk about that. Don't start talking about the acharyas and the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Why would you do that to someone new? What are you going to say to them? Really, what it is that you love about this book. I always jokingly say that I tell people sometimes, and I do it. I point to Prabhupada's picture and I say, that's my father. And they just laugh like anything. They look at me, I'm, black or whatever. Prabhupada's a little brown. They go look at Prabhupada, look at me. They like that because I'm telling the truth. Then I explain what that means. My guru, blah, 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 so many things. So I highly recommend be very personal with people, be very kind to people, whatever book you're selling. In one sense, it doesn't matter as long as you put a personal touch on that book. And I know Vaishya he always like signs the book. We used to do that a lot, sign the book, so people can see they met you and they remember you. It's really nice. And if you want to, you put your phone number or your email address. Actually, put your email address, put the book. And then that way, if they do become serious, which we hope a lot of people will, they know how to get in touch with someone.
Personally, it's not been that. I know since I came from Christian background to Krishna consciousness, when I meet somebody with a Christian background, I know Christians know very little about the soul. And Bhagavad Gita describes the soul so well in chapter 2. So that's when I began to tell them, in this book,
Nice.
you will get to know the nature of the soul. All we know is every time, nobody talks about the soul until somebody dies. And they say, oh, now the soul is going to heaven. First time they mention it. Do you know where the soul is? Do you know its size? Do you know how it connects to us? Do you know what happens in birth? Do you know all it's in there? And I go to my point, it's in there. It's in
Wow.
there. It's in there. So then they get interested. Then they want to know. So that's how really for Bhagavad Gita especially, since it's the science of the soul, it's described way more than any Christian knows. And that's
Wow.
there. And that's how Bhagavad
That's a
Gita
great Sankirtan approach. I like that.
is. That's much.
Very well.
Hare Krishna. Any other comments, questions by the buddies, please? Okay, we're on top of the hour now. But anyway, last comments? If if not, then thank you very much for coming on to hear. We always learn one from discussion and definitely to meet that today we've learned. Hopefully everybody would take their services that they do, especially altar service, seriously and not get, a little lethargic thinking that the deity is there. Okay, the deity is standing in one place, I have to do this. And the Lord is looking at you
Mm,
with all of his senses too. He's looking at it anyway. So we have to be very, 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 very serious and feel ourselves fortunate that we get to serve like that, in Srila Prabhupada's movement. So anyway, thank you again very much, and thank you,
thank
Sneha
you.
Buddhist, for coming on. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to
Bye.
Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bo.
Okay, all right. Oh, Bhajagopi is telling me thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
She's at work, so she just texted you on the chat.
Hari Bo.
Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhibhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Lord Srila Prabhupada.